Hello, today I want to do something unusual. I want to do something theoretical because I've noticed for a lot of time that I had really bad magic performance because of too much stress. And then I talked with Andreas and got coaching, and he told me that I should reduce stress as much as possible. For example, by having my deck prepared days before and not always switching the deck, and also not switching the sideboard all the time and so on. And this really helped. But now I also feel like sometimes there are some events where I feel not stressed enough and I do bad in the early rounds. And so I start like 0-2 and then it works well afterward. And sometimes also the other way, like I start out great and then I get too nervous the nearer I go to the top. So I wanted to find out if there's like some literature on this, if this just happens to me or to other people as well, and what's like the best mental state to be best at Magic. And I've talked with some other people on Discord today who also, some of them that, like, for example, they start out really well and then they tend to fare worse in the higher rounds. So let's just look at some literature. I didn't really research much, but Googled a bit, but let's see if we can find out something. And I want to start with this paper here from 1973. Oh, it's really old. Stress and performance. Okay, so in school we learned there is eustress and distress. So I guess in English we would say eustress and distress probably. So there's like good kind of stress and bad kind of stress. But let's see what they write here. So this article is quite old, so they write man and they mean people. You wouldn't write it that way today. So they write the first depends on the fact that man is constituted in such a way that he functions best under conditions where a moderate demand is made upon him. His performance is less than maximal, not only if the demand upon him is too high, but also if it is too low. It is therefore necessary to think in terms of both positive and negative departures from optimum as sources of stress, although the former are better recognized and probably more frequent than the latter. And of course, we want to translate this to Magic, and let's find out if this helps us play better Magic in the next tournament. Okay, and then they write, stress is the result of an imbalance between demand and the organism's capacity. It thus varies not only with environmental and social conditionings, sorry for the marking here, which affect demand, but also with the native endowment, training and bodily conditions which affect capacity. Okay, so some of this stuff we can obviously not change, so we shouldn't focus on that, but on this which we can change. So third, the concept of departure from optimum and also Zell's reference to personal involvement links stress to motivation. So this is really important for us because, for example, we cannot change like in the tournament how much we slept. We can change this before, of course, but if we are in the moment, let's see what we can change. Okay, and here they write, almost all theories of motivation agree up on the basic principle that action arises in an effort to improve conditions which are less than optimum. So if you are crushing tournaments left and right, you don't need to do anything. But if you want to play better Magic, then you can try to change something. I hope I understood this correctly. The action becomes more powerful up to the limit of the organism's capability. Yeah, sure. I mean, you cannot be a robot and remember 1,000 cards at once. There's only, as the departure from the optimum becomes greater, it diminishes as it lessens. Yeah, so you have a certain potential. Maybe I can win a small tournament, but even if I play my absolute best, I'm not good enough to win a really big tournament, for example, to translate it. But you can try to play as best as you can. Okay. And then stress on the view we have outlined can be conceived as arising when motivating conditions are not reduced by the organism's actions. Okay, the organism, that is us in this case if we are in a Magic tournament. So if we notice we are not at the best mental state and we are making mistakes, we should perform some action. So yeah, okay, theoretically sounds good, but like what can we do practically, right? Does this help us in any way? Okay, and the next one is action may be triggered not only by actual departures from optimum, but also by signs or symbols of them. So for example, you're in a big tournament in a big room and someone calls, okay, Tom, you are playing in the top 8 today. The corresponding observation regarding stress is that effects often occur before the situation arises. So you get nervous before you sit down at the feature match table and may actually diminish when it comes. So you really get nervous, but when you actually sit down to play the game, then it can actually be easier. So please write down in the comments if I understand something wrong, but that's the way I interpret this for Magic. Presumably the subject has underestimated his ability, of course, or her, it's an old article, to cope and finds the task less difficult than he feared. Such anticipation appears also to provide an operational definition of threat. Okay, don't know how that relates to Magic. This is difficult. The effect of any departure from optimum seems to be inversely related to the effort, difficulty, or unpleasantness involved in correcting it. Okay. Stress will arise not only when demand exceeds capacity in the sense that the person cannot cope. So for example, someone plays against Oops and could actually beat it, but just does not want to do it, or it's just too frustrating. Maybe this is an example. When it requires effort or the toleration of unpleasantness beyond what he is willing to bear, and is a continuous variable increasing gradually. So if I understand it correctly, it helps if I say, okay, this will be a difficult match against control and I need to be ready for it. Yeah, I think I have a perfect example for this. So I think this was Sunday in the Showcase Challenge, round 1 or 2, I played against a control deck. Esper control, and I played blue-black tempo, and this went for a long time, and we both nearly went through our whole library, and I tried to play like 10, 12, 15 threats. I don't know, it was a lot. Don't know the exact number. And the opponent, he or she, or they always had removal. Like there were 4 Swords to Plowshares and 2 Prismatic Endings and Teferi bouncing stuff. And at some point I just got frustrated, and I think this led to me playing it not optimally. So it was a bad matchup, but after the match I think I realized it too late, and also I think it should have changed for sideboarding. I should just have visualized myself or just told myself, well, you play 5 threats or 10 threats, this is alright. At some point something will stick, right? So I shouldn't get frustrated. That's just what will happen against this Esper control deck. Like, you play the first 5 ones, they get sorted, they get prismatic ended. It's just important to stick something. So that's what I take out of this. Okay, then there's something about time scales and like short-term and long-term tasks. I think this is not that relevant for our Magic tournaments, but please write in the comments if you think differently. I'm just going to skip it here. And we need to define optimum. Yeah, this is important that we define it, and it's difficult to define what is optimum. and we say, well, at least we say we avoid extremes and seek moderate levels. This also makes sense. So we don't want to be completely bored so we fall asleep, but we also don't want to play a control mirror with 2 games and 5 minutes left, because this is stressing us out. And here they give an example of like too much noise is bad, and like if we are in a sensory deprivation tank, this is also distressing. Then people like it if it's something is predictably. I guess the older you get, the more predictable you want everything to be, I guess. So it should also, though there should be some amount of surprise, but also not too much. And we prefer a moderate degree of conflict. We enjoy puzzles and mystery stories, okay. Dislike making decisions in the face of severely conflicting evidence. For example, I don't know, we play against Blue-Black Reanimator and we ponder and we don't know if we need the Graveyard Tate or, for example, the Swords to Plowshares. And here they try to simplify this as like one dimension optimum level of arousal. So sensory stimulation, novelty, and conflict raise arousal level. So for me, for example, novelty is if I switch this deck all the time, then it's increasing the arousal level. But if I want to reduce stress, I will always play Blue-Black Tempo, and I will just play the same list from yesterday and not like 5 minutes before the event, like change the sideboard completely. While monotonous uniformity, predictability, and concordance tend to lower it, right? So for example, for me, I noticed, okay, I just have my stock Blue-Black Tempo list. It's super boring. I know the list in my sleep. I have my 4 Nethergolfs and my 4 Bowmasters and my 4 Force of Wills, and in my sideboard, blah, 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 blah. I have my 2 Harbingers of the Sea and my 2 Hydroblast and blah, 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 right? This is how we lower stress. It's also well recognized that performance tends to be the best at intermediate levels. But if there's no tournament around and I'm just meeting with friends, then this would put me to sleep, right? If I played my like 400th or 500th match with Blue-Black Tempo, then I just like add a color, play Bug Beanstalk or something. So I don't fall asleep completely. Okay, yeah. The organism is insensitive and inert if the level is too low, and tense and disorganized if it is too high. And here they say this is not only for muscular strength, but for information processing. So for Magic, we are here right in the correct spot. And I have to say, this paper from, what was it, 1973, it sounds like it writes about Magic, right? Some of the most severe demands thus arise from the speed with which a task has to be done. Yeah, you aren't allowed to slow play. You have a timer on Magic Online, and yeah, slow play exists in paper. The number of sources of data that have to be monitored. So like if I play Beanstalk Control with 5 colors, I have to think about what I want to fetch. Which land do I play first? What do I fetch? Do I play around Wasteland? But if I fetch a basic, then I don't have my colors, and in the Wasteland can colors screw me more. Do I play around, I don't know, what's it called? Price of Progress or Blood Moon, and then I have to like get my mana under me and counter stuff and remove stuff, and I have to win somehow. So this is a lot of complexity, and like judging by those metrics, for example, if I play Oops, then I guess I have less decisions often. So I guess this would be a less stressful deck, at least in the pre-board, right? And then they also talk about social stress. Limited companionship as opposed to solitude may raise the levels, but too many other people also make the performance lower. So yeah, I guess this is more relevant to work, right? Some people, for example, I work really well if I'm alone in a room, or even better is like 2 people. If I have like 1 colleague and we can always speak, but if it's like 10, it's too much, and 1 is maybe not enough, okay? But this is maybe not that relevant to especially Magic Online tournaments. So, I mean, crowding, yeah, maybe, but I guess I want to focus on the most important things. So let's skip that. Stress and arousal. And here they have a really nice graphic. This is called the inverted U hypothesis, okay? As stress increases and resulting arousal rises, performance improves until some optimum point is reached, but thereafter declines. It does not advance our understanding very much. Where, for example, does the optimum point come? Why does it seem to differ from one task to another? And I still have to say, for a paper that is written about something totally general a long time ago, this seems really relevant to Magic for me. But yeah, exactly, like I see it, okay, I have this optimum. So for example, for me, I would say, on Sunday, I started too low. I went 2-0, and then I thought, maybe I can play, and I got a few wins after that. Then I was maybe in optimum state at the end. But sometimes I start at the optimum, and then I get too nervous in the top 8. So I should somehow determine where is the optimum, where am I in relation to the optimum, and how can I even control it, right? Then there's some other theory called signal detection theory, but it doesn't seem very relevant, so I'm going to skip that. Okay, but this is also important. They say the increase of reward for correct response or punishment for error also increases performance up to a moderate level, but to decline again at still high levels. So for example, if you meet with your friends in the store and just play for fun, it's nice, but maybe you don't really have high level Magic. But then you say, okay, the winner gets a pizza or something. That's great. But then you say the winner gets €1,000 or dollar and everyone else has to pay it. Then this is maybe making you too stressed. So this is a tuning knob, maybe not for you directly, but maybe for the tournament organizers. I guess, I mean, they already know if you want a fun event with like people less stressed out, you have a lower reward. And if you want it to be more competitive and get like higher level, then you increase the rewards, but maybe not make it too top heavy, because if only the first person gets a prize and the second gets nothing, then people also will get too stressed out. Maybe. Okay, so this is maybe too far away from the topic. Let's see if there's anything more we can get from this paper and maybe skip to a different one. Okay, changes of strategy under stress. Maybe this is interesting for us. Okay, and towards the end of a simulated flight, the subjects ignored instruments peripheral to the main task and to concentrate on those in frequent use. I guess if you're a blue-black tempo deck, then maybe you ignore like fetching correctly or sequencing correctly and you just try to attack with your creatures. Or on the other hand, if you're a control deck, then maybe you forget to attack with your Snapcaster Mage and you just concentrate on, I don't know, staying alive. Okay, these are attempts to reduce overload at abandon tasks which become too difficult, or when the task cannot be abandoned, to direct aggression at its source. What does it mean? I think I misparsed this. They don't mean it goes to direct aggression, but direct as a verb. You get aggressive at its source, so you get annoyed, for example. So, oh man, this fetch lands, I hate always fetching and shuffling my deck. Maybe this is what they mean. Okay, then there's something about underloading, but I think this happens less in Magic because there's so much to keep track of. At least for me in a Magic tournament, I'm never underloaded. But if your opponent tap with the finger or foot or hums or fidgets when bored, then maybe you can play a bit faster, I guess. Okay, and then they say that there are different people work differently under stress. Okay, yeah, this makes sense. And there are like different personality dimensions and, for example, neuroticism and anxiety and extroversion, introversion. Okay. And yeah, this is also surprising to some people that introverted people experience more chronic arousals than extroverted. So like, how can I explain it? So if you're an introverted person, all the stuff that happens on the outside, like you experience a greater signal. And if you are an extroverted person, it's like you always wear sunglasses and earplugs. And so because you receive less of a signal, you seek out higher signals or more noise or more people so that in the end you get enough signal in your brain. I hope I understand this correctly. Please correct me in the comments if you know this better. Okay, research has concentrated, and this is in the 70s, I guess there's much more now, on the second relationship, linking personality scores, arousal, and performance. Okay. The greater arousal of more introverted subjects mean those compared with those more extroverted, they tend to be better performers under monotonic conditions where arousal tends to zag. Okay, to be less affected by narcotic drugs. Okay, stand up better to loss of sleep. This is interesting. I didn't know this. There are diurnal rise and fall of body temperature occurs early in the days, so that they are warmer and perform better than extroverts in the morning. Okay, so if you play in the Echo Cup and you're an introvert, you should schedule your match in the morning. And if you're an extrovert, you should schedule it in the evening. Stand up better to loss of sleep. Okay, and you should, as an introvert, you should play a monotonous deck. Okay. Interesting. Everyday life. Okay, we are talking about magic, not everyday life. So I guess, yeah, in the cybernetic sense, a high gain, well damped. Okay. Self-driving. Extroverts enjoy no so bright colors. Okay, I don't know if this helps us with the tournament. This is important. Okay, extroverts tend to remain stable under pressure and perform best under such conditions. So for extroverts, it's like great if you get into the top 8. If people watch, for example, if you get offered to play in the in the camera position, then maybe if you're an extrovert, you should say yes, absolutely, because then you perform best. And if you're an introvert, then I guess you should think about it. It could still be cool to be on camera, but maybe you perform worse. And yeah, I don't know, this is from the 70s. Please, if you're a psychologist and watching this and this has changed today, please correct me. But for me, this kind of makes sense and sounds really interesting. Here they talk about certain forms of mental handicap. I think this is not so important for our Magic tournament preparation. Okay, then they talk about differences between social groups and communities. For example, they say Australians are more extroverted than people in Britain. Okay, the trend is not large. We should expect Australians to be chronically less aroused, standing more positive stress without their performance deteriorating. Okay, if they say the effect is small, then I guess this is not so important for us. We should expect Australian women to be less likely to be under-aroused and therefore more alert, more effective than their men folk. Okay, while at the same time, I don't know. I think this is not so important here. Australian men have earned an outstanding reputation in battle and contempt. I don't know. If I read stuff like this, I'm always a bit skeptical, but let's see. Also, like, we cannot change much of it, right? If you're an Australian woman, cannot become a British man. Average trends, yeah. They don't know the reason: climate, physical, social norms. Yes, okay. Here, this is more important. Controlling stress, that's what we want. How can we be better Magic players? The basic problem is clearly to match individuals and tasks. So, I mean, this doesn't really help, because if we are in the Magic tournament, we are in the Magic tournament, right? But I mean, maybe you can decide, right? Maybe I say I'm a better League player and you say you are a better Challenge player. So that's possible, right? Maybe you are so good of a Magic player that you just become bored in leagues, and so you should only play challenges, or you are overwhelmed in challenges, then you should just start leagues. And if leagues are too difficult because you're just starting with Magic, maybe you should start in the, like, what's it called, tournament practice room or something. Okay, this is interesting, that universities like should handle different students differently, and extroverts have to be driven relatively hard if they are to realize their full potential, while introverts, being self-driving, need to be handled more gently. So I guess this is more important if you are coaching someone else, and if they are an extrovert and they make a misplay, then you should say, here, this is a horrible play, you should never do this, like. And then, because if you just say, this may not be optimal, then they will just ignore it, right? On the other hand, if you coach an introvert and you say, this was a horrible play, then maybe they will get into a lot of self-doubt and perform worse. But to them, they should say, I'm not sure if that's optimal. Maybe you could think about different options. Okay. The obvious criticism is unfair not to treat all students alike, is educationally naive. Okay, but yeah, I guess this is more important if you are coaching other people, because we are here, if we try to improve for ourselves, we are like self-driving. But yeah, if we are in a group, this is important to know. And it's also something I sometimes do. Like, I know people that just ignore me if I say, please, can you like put this away, because they just ignore it. And then you have to say, here, this is not okay. But other people, they're like, really, you just have to say, can you think about this one? And they, sorry. So yeah, different people need to be treated differently. Conservation of talent. Okay. Is there more? There's stress with responsibilities. Heart disease. Okay, I guess this is not much of a relevance for Magic. And here they close it out. So people can undoubtedly adapt to stress, but probably only within limits. The problem of stress cannot therefore be brushed aside as something that will solve itself if we wait long enough. Some stress is necessary to bring out the best in us. Stress is only a problem when it becomes too severe. Stress can arise from underloading as well as from overloading, and can arise when life is too easy as well as when it is too hard. And third, optimum and maximum tolerable levels of stress differ from one individual to another, so that different people need different treatments if they are to realize their best performance. However equal men may be before God and the law in their reactions to stress, they are not all the same, and it is no kindness to treat them as they were. So yeah, I think this was a really interesting article, even if it's really old. So I will look at more articles, but I think I will close out this video here and post the other one separately. So please, you can also read the article and yeah, please tell me what you think, if you want more of this kind of content or if you just want leaks, or I also have a lot of challenges that I just need to upload. Okay, see you later.